to today's episode of The Daily Blend. I'm your host, AC, and joining me in studio today is Brendon Steenbergen, and he is the author of Respectable Roughnecks, a true story of a forgotten champion. So, Brendon,
yes,
tell me a little bit about Respectable Roughnecks, because this is about a Mizzou team.
It is about a Mizzou team. Specifically, it's the 1960 Missouri Tigers football team, which was an 11-0 team with an asterisk. I'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yes.
And won the Orange Bowl and had a lot of interesting components to the season, including some of the characters on the cover. You got Norris Stevenson, who was Missouri's first ever black football player, and he was a senior on that team and was pivotal in their success that year.
Wow, and this is him on the cover of the book.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. And he was, were there two
yes.
on the team?
So Norris Stevenson and Mel West were the first two black players. Norris Stevenson gets the nod as the first player because he started Mizzou a semester before Mel.
Okay.
But they were both seniors on that team, and they were both carried the ball a lot. They were big stars on the team.
Yeah, so just give us an overview. Why was this even an interesting subject for you?
Yeah, so I started it years ago, like maybe 2014, 2015. Mizzou was new in the SEC, and I didn't know a lot about Mizzou's football program history, and a lot of the SEC brethren had disparaging things to say about Mizzou because I don't think they knew about the program history either. But I vaguely knew that they had some glory years in the 60s and 70s, and so I was looking them up, and I saw particularly this season was 11-0, and I thought, well, you're undefeated. That's a national champion, right?
Right.
But they weren't listed as a national champion, so I dug into why, and I started seeing all these interesting things. This big controversy with a game at Kansas that got forfeited. The first black player, as we mentioned, first consensus All-American for Mizzou, the first bowl win, the first Orange Bowl win for Mizzou, all these first. And I thought, this is super interesting. I know very little about it. I bet I'm not the only one. And I wanted to tell the story. And at the time, I knew that the people involved were getting older. And if they were going to tell me firsthand about it, I needed to talk to them pretty soon.
Yeah. And so you started to do that. And you said that this cover, you talked a lot to his wife. He was already passed away.
Yeah, Dolores Stevenson, who is still with us. She spoke to me a number of times about Norris's experience, her experience on campus. She was also a Mizzou student here, and what it was like to be a black student at Mizzou during the Civil Rights era, what it was like for Norris to be a football player, the first football player. He came to campus, didn't know he was going to be the first black football player. And so, she shared a lot of insight that I wouldn't have otherwise had. And she came to my book launch. It was really exciting to meet her firsthand. So,
I'm sure. She did a lot of talking to her over the phone.
Did a lot of talking over the phone. She's in St. Louis. I'm in Columbia. And but we had our launch in St. Louis, and she was able to come with their daughters. And so it was great.
That's really nice. So how's the book going? How's it doing?
Doing really well. I mean, I didn't know exactly what, it's the first sort of historical novel I've ever put out. So I didn't know what to expect, but it's doing really well. It's gotten a lot of attention. Coach Drinkwitz tweeted about it the other day, which I was excited about. And I was featured on the SEC Network a couple times on the Paul Feinbaum show to talk about it. So it's gotten a lot of publicity, and I think certainly older Mizzou fans. I joke that my Swifties are like 75 to 85-year-old men from Central Missouri, but it's kind of true.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
But it's getting a lot of interest from younger fans, too, who, like me, didn't know about the story.
Yeah, because when somebody takes the time to put together something like this, it really opens this up to a whole new group of people who had no idea. So hopefully the new Tiger fans are taking a look at this to get some history.
Yeah, and I hope that people maybe who aren't even affiliated with Missouri, but are interested in sports history or what life was like for African-American students or athletes at that time might be interested in it as well. Yeah,
I would imagine you got some pretty good stories from the people that you talked about who were around at that time.
Yeah, and it was very important to me that they do talk to me. Mel West's wife talked to me too. Mel had passed on, and that, like, when I met Dolores Stevenson, that she approved of the book because I'm a middle-aged white guy.
Sure.
And maybe I'm not the right guy to tell their story, right? And so their approval meant the world to me. And Dolores told me, said, "You just got Norris," and that made me feel so good because I was uncomfortable a little bit about that. But that's what if Dolores was happy, then I was going to be happy.
Yeah. I understand that. And I know you've been kind of making the rounds with the book here recently, haven't you?
Yeah. I've been going to local events and clubs and places to talk about the book and share the story of this team and the guys that were involved in it. And, I'm pretty much anybody will ask me, I'll talk to them.
Understood. I understand that. And I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a foreword by Gary Pinkel.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's right. And I was really honored that Gary Pinkel would sign on and write a little bit about it. I mean, he's somebody who has firsthand experience with this football program in a way that not many people do.
Absolutely.
So it meant a lot to associate his name to my book and also to hear his words about what he thought about this team that came before him.
Oh, yeah. Came before, quite a lot of us. Quite a lot of us. So tell me about the title. How did you come up with the title, Respectable Roughnecks?
Yeah, so Respectable Roughnecks was a term coined by a sports writer from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch named Bob Bragg. Bob Bragg wrote about Mizzou and the Cardinals for years and years, and there's another name a lot of people may not remember, but he was very good friends with Dan Devine, the coach for Mizzou at that time. And at the time they were heading to the Orange Bowl, they were an undersized team. They weren't very big.
Okay.
And so they overperformed. And they were loading the plane in St. Louis to head to Miami for the Orange Bowl. And Bob Bragg was talking to Dan Devine, and he said, they don't look like football players. They're small, and they're in their business suits. He said, they look like professors or accountants. He goes, I guess they're respectable roughnecks.
I like
and
it.
so as a nod to Bob and that little tidbit that he coined and then put in the paper later, I thought that would make a great title.
It is a fantastic title, honestly. Seriously, it just makes you want to read it because you want to know who these Respectable Roughnecks are. Yeah. How much time did you put into the whole thing?
Well, it's hard to say because I started it a long time ago. I started it maybe 10 years ago, 2014, looking guys up, starting doing the research, going through microfilm with the Historical Society for old papers. But then there'd be times that would lapse, where I wasn't looking into it. But, it's like a 10-year process off and on, but probably 2 or 3 years of research, and then the writing went fast.
That is truly amazing. Well, I cannot wait to read this. I am now very interested in that 1960s Mizzou Tigers football team. And thank you so much for taking the time to interview all those folks and talk about all the important things that were going on back at this time. So I'm excited to read it. And Brendon, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.